Welcome to the Executive Real Estate Investing Show. This podcast is for you, the busy business owner or executive looking to create generational wealth. Here, we're going to show you how to do that through real estate investing, from multifamily to industrial and everything in between. You will become a real estate investing expert. And now, here's your host, Michael Holman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Executive Real Estate Investing Show. As always, I'm your host, Michael Holman, and we have an amazing show today. Our guest, Jorge Abreu, he's even given me permission to say Abreu, but I'm going to try and pronounce it correctly through this whole thing. He is awesome, right? One of the things that I loved about this conversation with George is there's so many little things that if you're just paying attention that you can pick up on through this conversation, just about his mindset and what he's doing. And I love that even through this, right? He's not super aggressive, but he has been killing it. He's been doing so much in the real estate space. He has a wealth of knowledge, and you need to listen into this because he's got so much good information to take from, and all of these little nuggets. And it's almost like you have to be paying attention, right? Because he doesn't come out and just say it, but he'll allude to it, or he'll make this little comment, and it's fantastic. I love it. I love it when you have to go searching through it. So this is going to be a good one. You'll want to listen to this. That being said, we've had so many amazing guests, and we have so many people listening to this show time and time again. Our listens are just going through the roof right now, which we're really excited about. If you're liking the show, go ahead and hit subscribe, and do me a favor, right? Go ahead and leave us a rating and review. That would really help us out. We really appreciate it. That's going to get the show to more people, and it's going to allow more people to hear our conversations with people like George, who've done amazing things. They're trying to get to 10,000 apartment units under management in the near future. Just amazing. So go ahead, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Really appreciate it. Also, check out the website, executivereishow.com. Check out all the old episodes. You sign up for the newsletter, ask an executive question, whatever the case may be, you can find it on executivereishow.com. And as always, we're going to start today's show with the executive tip. And today's executive tip, I'm actually going to piggyback off of something George said and mentioned, and he's going to get into this more. But the executive tip for today is to be confident in yourself, in your abilities, and what you do. That is one of the most important things, I think, in business. And being confident means different things for different people, right? Sometimes when we think of confident people, we think of people who are maybe a little bit arrogant, but that's not what this means, right? You can be extremely confident in yourself and in your abilities. And I think what that means is trusting the decisions and the actions that you're taking are going to lead you to the right solution. And if they don't, it's being confident that you'll be able to pivot and you know how to get to a right solution. So today's executive tip, be confident in yourself, in your abilities. And with that, I'm not going to delay any longer. We're going to get right into today's episode with George. It's fantastic, and you're going to want to listen to this one. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Executive Real Estate Investing Show. We have a fantastic guest with us today, and I am going to pause before I say his name because we were just talking about it, and he's been called everything. Apparently, there's a couple baseball players though that have helped him out. So, George, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong or if I say it wrong here, but we now have with us Jorge Abreu.
You nailed it, man. Yeah.
All right. Look at that.
Pretty good.
He gave me permission to say Abreu, but I feel bad. You can't invite someone onto your podcast and call him by the wrong name the whole time.
Yeah. And the funny part is I'm having you call me George, but you nailed the Spanish last name.
I love it. Hey, well, I'll take it, George. And thanks for coming on today. We're really excited to have you. You have been what feels like everywhere. I mean, every time I turn around, whether it's social media or I'm talking to somebody, it feels like your name seems to come up. every event that I get invited to, I see you on the guest list. I have yet to go to a lot of these events just because it's been a crazy year, and I know it's been a crazy year for you too. But I'm really excited that we now get to hook up and have this conversation. So once again, thank you for joining. And just so all our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, George, why don't you introduce yourself?
Absolutely, man. So I am a real estate investor. Been one full time for about 15 years now. Done everything from single family wholesale, single family rentals, fix and flips, ground up. Then jumped into small multifamily, same thing. Flipped them, owned existing, built ground up, and what I 100% focus on now is large multifamily, 100 plus units. Been doing that that's been my main focus for about 4 years now. I am closing this year out with a little bit over 5,800 units that I've acquired. We did sell some this year.
It's awesome.
So yeah, assets under management, I believe, is somewhere in the high 4,000 units wise.
That is fantastic. No, and like I said, you've been everywhere. It sounds like this has been a big year for you. How has 2021 treated you? How's it gone for you in this regards?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been a great year. So obviously last year was difficult, and went into last year with a lot of traction and momentum. And then I felt like I just got uppercutted. But I took a lot of time that I couldn't close on deals. I was working on systems and the team and just perfecting all of that. And it really started paying off towards the end of last year, and then rolled right into 2021. And man, it's been crazy. We closed on, it's going to be 16 properties total. So it's been nonstop. It's been fun.
Yeah, no, I bet it just sounds crazy. That's the thing that it keeps coming to my mind, right? With how much you have going on and how much you're doing. It just sounds crazy, and I love it. So one of the things that you kind of mentioned that was really interesting that I want to take just a second and ask about, you talked about, hey, getting the people and the systems in place, and taking a step back, and that kind of paid dividends. What are some of those systems that you implemented, or who are the people that you got that you felt really helped grow your business?
Yeah. So some of the systems having to do with acquisitions for sure. Creating our specific criteria of what we're looking for, and then what exactly we're looking for on the front end so not only do I have brokers that bring us deals, but I also have other investors that bring us deals to help them close on it, and pretty much run the deal. And that way they get to get their name on some deals, and also learn and participate. So with that said, it's easier said than done, right? I get stuff thrown at me left and right. So there has to be a certain system in place to be able to funnel that and put the focus towards the good deals and the ones that fit what we're going after. On the equity side, we made a lot of automations, and same thing with CRM and our investor portal. And then with asset management, same thing, right? The really zoning in on the KPIs we're looking for, and how we track those on a weekly basis, and then how we communicate with our investors. We pretty much do everything out of our investor portal now, which is great. Makes it a lot easier to communicate with the investors. And then bringing on the team members, like you said, we just brought on a full-time analyst, and looks like we're going to be bringing somebody on for acquisitions here soon, and then probably investor relations is next. So
Cool.
kind of tackling all those bottlenecks before they become bottlenecks as we grow.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And the things that you had mentioned, I mean, all of those things, right, are so important as a real estate investor, especially as a general sponsor, right, and as a general partner throughout this. You have to have all of those things in place. And one of the things that kind of caught my attention as you were going through all this, right, is KPIs and metrics. And one of the questions that I get asked all the time, not only in this podcast, but even with investors outside of this show, is, what, especially new investors, what can I expect when investing in real estate? And I believe you focus specifically on multifamily. When you get asked that question, what's your answer?
What can I expect investing in real estate?
Exactly. What kind of returns can I expect when I invest in real estate?
Gotcha. So I mean, there's a couple different things there. Usually I start off by explaining some of the tax benefits, and obviously I tell them to get with their CPA and see how much of that they can take advantage of. But I think that's huge, and that's not even getting to the returns yet. And then I explain to them how we do our distributions. We have quarterly distributions, cash on cash, depending on the type of deal. So we're pretty, yes, we focus on multifamily, but we're pretty diverse within multifamily. So, we've got our Class A, our Class B, our Class Cs. We do some ground up stuff as well. So all of those have different metrics on returns. Mainly, some you're going to get more cash flow on, some you're going to get bigger returns, but less cash flow, is essentially what it comes down to. Explain to them how we as deal sponsors communicate with our investors, and kind of walk them through the expectations on that end.
That's fantastic, and I love to hear that. I play almost exclusively in that new development sandbox. And so this is a conversation I have all the time, right? Is that balance between, hey, depending on what you're getting, it's cash flow versus return, right? Like new development, for example, when we're doing 200, 300 unit ground up developments, it's like, look, there's no cash flow for 2 to 3 years, because we just got to build the thing. We got to build it, we got to lease it up. But at the end of the day, it might be worth 40 or 50% more than what we originally built it for.
Correct. Yeah. So your total return should be larger on a development project versus, the cash flow aspect of it.
Exactly. Well, and one of the things, right? I mean, if you're not watching this on YouTube, maybe you're listening to it. What I'm looking at behind George here is he's got his companies, right? Elevate Commercial Investment Group and J&T Construction. And I'm really excited to talk to you about both of those and how they work together, because George, you are we also are vertically integrated, right? We do development, construction, management, and you are one of the very few people that I have ever brought on this show that has both of those components, right? You have the investment group and you have the construction side. What led you to do both of the sides of those?
Yeah, I think so. It started because of single family. So I was scaling single family. I was doing high volume, and the bottleneck I ran into were the contractors. I couldn't find enough good contractors. We got burned a few times. And that's when I decided to open the construction company, was to be able to scale the single family. And then when I made that transition over to multifamily, still had the construction company, obviously, but I noticed not a lot of multifamily investors had that, and they were really relying on their property manager to do a lot of this, and their expectations were not being met because they're putting a lot onto a property manager, not a construction company, to be able to handle both aspects. And right away I noticed that, okay, I can bringing the construction company, it's going to be a game changer, and it's definitely helped out. I get why a lot of companies kind of start with investors, multifamily investors. I guess the first bottleneck they run into is more of the management, right? And they don't really think of the CapEx. But when what we're mainly doing is value add deals, I mean, the CapEx is pretty darn important. So yeah, man, I think it's worked out great.
I love it. I love it. And I just have to ask, right? Some of your deals that I've seen have been pretty big. So what, just random side question, what is the biggest CapEx project you've ever had to do?
To date, be 10 million, but we've got one lined up for next year. That's 24.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
George, that's like a new development.
It pretty much, I mean, it's a massive property, but yeah, it's
I was gonna say you might as well just tear it down and build it back up.
It's an 850 unit.
Oh wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, 24. I just barely built a 116 unit project for 25 million. I couldn't do that nowadays, but when we locked in the contracts 2 years ago, we could do it. So your CapEx budget is what my new development budget was on that recent project. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then this is, I'm answering renovation wise, CapEx wise.
Yeah.
Like not even including the new development. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's just CapEx. That is, well, 850 units is awesome. Really excited for you. Really excited about what's going on. How do you find balancing? Do you find that you have to split your time between the two of these groups a lot? I mean, this is something, so I let me preface this question by saying a lot of our listeners are dealing with this same type of situation, right? They're growing companies, they're building companies, they're adding pieces and different verticals to their company. And one of the questions that often comes up is, how do I deal with these two different companies that both feel like they require all of my attention in order to be able to scale? How have you managed to kind of balance having both of those?
Yeah, no, it's not easy, right? So I wouldn't suggest to anybody to think right off the bat, okay, I'm going to go into multifamily. I'm going to start my syndication investment company, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm also going to do construction in-house, and I'm also going to do property management in-house. Because then you're literally starting 3 companies. However you look at it, it's even if you brand them all the same and you don't do any third-party work and it's just all in-house, it's still 3 different companies. So it worked for me because at the time that, one, I had already established an investment company, but even changing that over to multifamily, it was kind of starting from scratch in a sense. But the construction company wasn't. The construction company, I had the team. We had already started doing multifamily renovations and some commercial work, and we were getting more focused on that end. So it wasn't like I was starting that from scratch. It was more of just a little transition. So I was able to do it, and I was able to focus more on the investment company and building out the team there. And now that I've got that, I can, equally bounce around and I'm not going too nuts.
Yeah, I love it. Not too nuts, just a little nuts.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen all the traveling and heard about all the traveling you've been doing. You're going nuts, but in a good way, in a very good way. Well, yeah. I love that that's that natural progression, because sometimes, right, as we get going and we want to build these businesses, we get so excited and we just try and do everything all at once, right? And we get a little impatient before we actually get really, really good at something. And I love that you kind of point
one thing
out
first, man. That's what I always tell people. Focus, conquer it. Same thing with different aspects of or different real estate classes, right? Like, don't try to do a storage, a mobile home park, a industrial, and a multifamily, and like conquer one, man, and then and then you can get more diverse.
Yeah, I love it. Well, that perfect transition. We've been talking about multifamily. Are you exclusively investing in multifamily right now?
It's definitely the majority, but no, I mean, I've been doing crypto for a while, cryptocurrency. I just invested in a Bitcoin mining fund. What else? I've got some other investments here and there, but definitely majority is multifamily real estate.
Perfect. Do you do any other asset classes within real estate right now?
On the new development, yeah, but even then, it's going to be a mixed use where multifamily's the main component.
Yep. Makes sense.
But no, right now I'm not. I've looked at storage quite a bit. I've got one that I keep putting off, and I probably need to go off. It's right by my house, man, and I've got a good plan where I can buy land and the storage and kind of just build more storage.
Yep.
Somebody else is going to jump on it by the time I get on it. But
I love it. Well, then that begs the question, right? And maybe it's part more of these natural progressions that you've had throughout your career, but why multifamily? Why is that the asset class of choice for you?
To me, it's the one that felt the safest. I was in real estate before 2006 and the whole burst of the bubble in 08. So I've seen a recession, and I look back and I look at that and I noticed that multifamily was not nearly as affected as some other classes. Then going back right now to COVID, kind of the same story. You had some other ones that did well, but it's just people are always going to need somewhere to live, right? And the way things are going, it's only with single family pricing getting so high. I mean, it's just only attracting more people to having to rent versus buy. So to me, it's a safer bet that still has much better returns that you can get elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I completely agree. That's one of the things that I know we love about multifamily as well, is because you said it exactly. I mean, when you boil it down to its simplest form, everybody needs a place to live, right? And all the things that you had mentioned and said all go into that. And you can get a lot more sophisticated than that on why all of those levers and why all of those things are happening. But you said it perfectly, I believe, in the most simplest form, right? It's just, look, people need a place to live. Stuff's getting expensive. And when it gets expensive, you got to rent. If you can't buy, if a house that was $300,000 2 years ago is now $600,000, that can be a really difficult transition to make, to go buy that $600,000 house. And so I love what you're saying. And I love the simplicity of how you phrase that. And I feel like it's just so relatable to everybody, whether you're a seasoned, real estate investor, or you're brand new and you've never invested in real estate ever. One of the things to tack onto that too is you can even just look at lenders, right? Lenders on multifamily.
They love it.
They love it. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of lenders, right? And I deal with lenders all the time. That's one of the main things that I do at my company. And they love multifamily. Everybody wants to be in multifamily. All of them view multifamily as a safe bet. They'll give you more money in multifamily than they'll give you for, a hotel, which, or just about any other asset class out there.
87% LTC about a month ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's nuts.
And it's because the lenders are looking at it saying, look, we believe that it's going to be, good now and in the future. And that's why they're willing to do it. Right.
Yep.
Well, I love it. I think that's one of
I
the
try to keep it simple, man. I mean,
hey,
it's like,
I love it. People try and make real estate investing sometimes too complicated, right? I mean, in its simplest form, it's very, very simple, whether it's value add or new development. And so I love the simplicity of that. George, kind of just one of the other things that I know I wanted to get into, because I know you're really, really good at this, and we talked about it just a little bit at the beginning, and that is the due diligence on the front end of a project, right? You talked about putting in systems in place to make sure the right deals are coming through the door. You're acquiring just gobs and gobs of properties right now. What are what are you doing, or what is your process through due diligence to make sure that you're getting the best properties out there and that are available to you?
yeah, I mean, it's pretty extensive, and it's so the market we're in right now, you want to do your homework, right? You don't want to be buying, we're already all overpaying, right? If you want to look at it like that, I don't know, it's what does that really mean? We're paying a lot at this point in the market, per door, and you want to make sure there's no skeletons in the closet. You want to make sure that your assumptions and your projections are reachable, and your assumptions are correct. So I mean, even before we're putting something under contract, we're doing so much work on these numbers. We're not going by any of your typical rule of thumbs on our pro forma. Everything is as hard number as it can get. Taxes, insurance, capex, obviously. Um, so that's one, right? We don't want any surprises. And then we do a lot of market research. We you'd be surprised on how many, like I mentioned before, I have a lot of investors that send me deals, and they want to partner with me. And I love when, I don't love it, but when when I ask them where they're getting their projections from, and they tell me, well, the broker said this, and it's like, oh, you mean the guy that's trying to sell this deal to make $200,000 just told you this? Okay, I
Oh, I
mean,
love it.
I like the brokers too, man, but so
I have to jump in there for a second and just say I completely understand. It's so funny to me. You'll get an offering memorandum or something like that, and naturally what's happened is you'll get the pro forma, and there'll be all these little asterisks next to like 3/4 of the numbers, adjusted for market rate,
Yep,
for market rate.
yep.
It's like
Man, it used to be like a little section of the next page would tell you all the assumptions. Man, I saw one the other day. It was like 2 pages long of just their assumptions. I'm like, okay, yeah,
you're like, this has nothing to do with what the property's been doing for the last 12 months. Like,
no,
this has absolutely nothing.
yep.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, I'm not sure if that completely answered your question on the due diligence, but I mean, we spend a lot of time on the front end. I'll tell you that, a
Yeah.
lot of time.
No, I love it. And that's one of the things that I think trips people up a lot is, sometimes when you get new investors, whether they're passive or active investors, right? Even I get a lot of passive investors to say, what should I do? How should I vet? I have these sponsors, I have these different things going on. And how do I do my due diligence? How do I feel like I'm making a good investment without just closing my eyes and, giving my money to someone and hoping and praying a little bit? And that's what I think you'd mentioned, right? Is not only one of the important aspects, right? Let's talk about passive investors for just a second. Passive investors aren't doing all the due diligence that you're doing. And the thing that's important and to understand for those groups and those people who want to be passive investors, the due diligence really lies mostly for you in the sponsor, not necessarily in the deal, right? Because if you vet the sponsor and you can be comfortable with the sponsor, then you can be comfortable with the assumptions that they're making, with the due diligence that they're doing. And that's the important aspect there.
No, I agree, man. I mean, the reason it's passive is because you're trusting an operator, right? So you want to make sure that operator is vetted and they've got a good track record and they have the tools to be successful. I agree, man. I agree. Most of your time should be spent in vetting that deal sponsor, and then you should know enough to kind of catch some red flags on the deal itself. But if you've done a good job vetting that deal sponsor, then ultimately you should be able to trust them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, George, we're going to end it. We have two questions that we ask, everyone who comes on the show. First question, what is the best business advice that you were ever given?
Okay, that's a good question. So not the best advice I have, the best business advice I've ever been given. Oh man, clearly I haven't had enough business coaches or mentors. And I know I've been given some, man. I think what sticks with me was to not undervalue yourself. When you're negotiating things, when you're figuring out the direction that your company's going, don't undervalue you, and how you got to where you're at. So I guess have confidence in yourself is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. Well, now I'm going to flip it on you and we're going to talk about that thing that you just mentioned, right? So what real estate investing advice would you give, other business owners and other executives?
Real estate investing advice for the active investors, is that
active, passive? Just what real estate investing advice do you have for the world that you feel like is valuable for people?
Gotcha. I would say, and we talked about this earlier, is, you continue to ask me about multifamily and if there's other classes of real estate that I'm investing in. I would say at first, pick one, whatever it is, take the time to educate yourself on it. And this is whether you're passive or active, right? If you're going to be active, obviously you need to really, really go deep into the operations of it and whatnot. But take the time to gain the knowledge. I see a lot of folks, and I think it's just the times we're in. They're trying to skip that work. It's you can't just skip over all that. Like, I'm sorry. And if you do, you're gonna make some big mistakes probably. So take the time to educate yourself, spend the money. I mean, there's a bunch of free education out there too. And then once you've got that, I mean, go back to what I just said, right? Be confident in yourself at that point. If you've got the knowledge, now be confident and do it. Take action. Sitting on the sidelines doesn't do anything for you. I know people have been, I want to say maybe since 2016, I've been hearing, oh, we're at the top of the market. We're at the top of the market. Oh, I'm waiting. Imagine that's 6 years of essentially losing money, because if you just had the money sitting in the banks, you're losing money with inflation.
Absolutely.
I think everybody's kind of understanding that now. So yeah, man, make sure you take the action after you're done. Well, you got to take action to get educated too. So yeah.
I love it. Well, George, it's been fantastic. Everybody who's been listening to this, I'm sure is gaining a lot of value. And the thing that I want to point out to everybody who's listened to this show before we end here is the thing with George and how this conversation has gone is you look at some of the little things that have been said and how they've been said. There's actually some amazing little nuggets of knowledge, right? As far as, hey, keeping it simple, that was one of those things that at the very beginning, it just became very apparent, very obvious, right? That's one of the things
Don't
that George
overthink
does.
it, man. Yeah,
Exactly. So make sure you take in and listen to even some of the things that are being said and how they're being said, and you're going to gain just a ton of value. If you need to hit restart, go listen to it again. and be sure to catch George later on. George, how can people get a hold of you?
Man, best way is we're constantly updating our website. So elevatecig.com. If they're seeing the video, I'm sure they can see it in the background, but it's elevatecig.com. If they shoot me an email and they tell me they heard me on here, I'll send them some free content. I've got all types of checklists and different stuff. And my email's Jorge, Jorge @elevatecig.com.
Fantastic. Well, if you want some free content, be sure to reach out, contact George. Really appreciate him being so giving with all of that and being able to share the knowledge and the information that he's gained. George, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Executive Real Estate Investing Show. Ready to learn more? Go to executivereishow.com for more episodes and resources to help you create generational wealth through real estate investing. That's executivereishow.com.